Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Not sure if you just heard that last bit about Flanders Fields or not. What a big day it's been. And for those of you who've served, for those of you who've had family who've served, thank you for your service. There are many days where we should be remembering those who serve in this country. And sadly, on Remembrance Day, we don't tend to gather big crowds. And while there were a couple of thousand today at the Shrine of Remembrance in Melbourne, and at a couple of other places, it's very sad to note, as I've seen in the chat, many places that didn't bother pausing at all for Remembrance Day, particularly if you were in a surf club or possibly an RSL, because these days the RSLs play a whole different tune. And sadly, that is a tune that's played broadly across the Australian Defence Forces, and we're going to talk more about that tonight. I don't normally wear a hat on the show. If you missed the earlier live that I did from the car, I'm wearing it for a warning for you tonight. Always be sure of what you're asking for if you're going in to ask for a haircut. I've been into ladies' hairdressers where you blithely walk in and say, just a haircut, love, and you walk out paying $80 or $120 later. You've had 3 hours and a great conversation, but you've just wanted a haircut. Well, today, just the opposite happened to me. Wandered into a pretty blokey kind of a hair salon, can I say, and sat down, and he said, what do you want? And I said, well, number 2 on the sides, number 3 on the top, that'll do me. He said something, and I said, yeah, no worries at all. Well, turns out what he said was buzz cut. Nothing about scale or size of blade. So I paid $38 for this bloke to do this to me. In the good old days, all you had to do to get a haircut like this was to go to your local military office, put your hand in the air, sign a bit of paper and say an oath, and they gave you a haircut like this for free. And my next guest probably experienced that from a very early age. He, like many people, when they joined the Australian Defence Forces, probably went in because a recruiter showed them just how exciting a life in the Army, Navy, or the Air Force could be, just how fulfilling, just how profitable and good it is for your retirement. And there are no arguments about that. One of the other big selling points in recruitment for the Australian Defence Forces is how well you are looked after with defence housing loans and, more particularly, defence health. You have the opportunity to be have your medical bills sorted for the rest of your life. Now, that doesn't extend to everybody and everything. However, if you are someone who's served in an active area and that kind of thing, then you are pretty much up for the full gamut. And in the old days, I don't know if it still is, called a gold card. Now, getting to that point, you'd expect would be difficult. However, I think the ADF these days, particularly the administration of it, isn't run by anybody who has ever served in the Defence Forces. I think they are run by career bureaucrats who are working their way up through the Defence Ministry. I could be wrong. There is a bloke who is endeavouring to find out a great deal more about that fairly ugly little area in Canberra, and he is doing it from a very personal perspective. I have linked John Armfield's YouTube channel in the description of this program, and I urge you to go and have a look at episode 1, which will just blow you away to begin with. And thank you very much for joining me in the show tonight, John Armfield. Thank you for your service, mate. You're a career Navy clearance diver, and I can just only thank you and apologise for what the Australian government has done to you and your family over the last few years. Do you want to start off by giving us a bit of an idea of you and your brother's situation?
Firstly, Carl, thanks for having me on Voice of Freedom, mate. It's a privilege. Mate, I joined the Navy in 2003 as a clearance diver. My brother joined the Army in 2001. He committed suicide, attempted first time in June in 2011. He ended up having a stroke from that and pretty severely disabled. And he was able to then reattempt his second suicide attempt in 6th of October 2011. At that time, I was a junior sailor in the Navy. I was an able seaman. And 2011, my dad had stage 4 cancer, sorry. And my sister was pretty traumatized. So there's a lot going on.
Yep.
But
the Defence Forces pride themselves on saying, family, family, family. And I know I've got, somebody's close to me serving at the moment, and they do reach out. Here's a letter, here's a phone number. You can contact us here. But it doesn't extend much past that, does it?
Mate, my world come crashing down in 2021, 16th of August 2021 to be precise. And I only got the truth into my brother's suicide because there's a Royal Commission. If the Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide wasn't happening, I don't find out there's an inquiry report. I don't receive that report, and I'd still be serving. Because at the time I was fit to dive as a clearance diver when I did receive that. But the ADF, mate, I took that into work, and the ADF's exact response was, this is for the Royal Commission. It was a scripted narrative that had already formed. And it was in 18 and a half years at that time, it was the first time correspondence hadn't come through my chain of command. It had been mailed to me. And, mate, there was nothing. There was no one. So from August 2021 to the 5th of May 2023, not one commissioned officer, not one person in the ADF would take the inquiry report, 28-page inquiry report, sit down, read it with me, explain it to me until 5 days before they kicked me out medically.
Wow. Now, yeah. I don't want to get ahead of the story too much, but before they kicked you out medically, it's how they medically kicked you out, which is one of the cruxes of what you're working on at the moment. I'm going to say working on because you're not saying anything here. You're not saying, oh, the ADF told me this, or the ADF said that, or the ADF did. You're presenting this in what I think is an extremely unique way, and you are in a very fortunate position to be able to do this. I know, because I've spoken to a few veterans in the last 24 hours who are watching this show tonight with great interest, but you might be the diamond in the rough because you kept all the evidence.
It's pretty funny, Carl. I remember as a junior sailor, as a diver, that I was always told no one likes clearance divers, so make sure you've got everything in writing. And that is something that we were trained really well to do. So if I had a conversation with someone, it was followed up with an email. And it's something that has stuck with me. And I'm very lucky. I was told I was very lucky that my situation unfolded during a Royal Commission, because the support network and the advice and the legal advice I was getting through great people, obviously no support through the ADF, but
no,
the Royal Commission themselves, Nick Caldis as the Royal Commissioner, Peggy Brown, the other commissioner, one of them, and then the legal and mental health team, they were amazing. And my own psychologist, who's been great, she said, John, anyone else could have ended up potentially in a very bad place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that is spoken about every day in the Defence Forces, because there are blokes coming back from serving overseas in a variety of roles who, for whatever reason, come back troubled in different ways. It is not just that, though. You can get damage just going through basic training, and to a point where you can get physically hurt enough so that you can't progress anymore, and they medically fail you then. And then where are you left? Because all of a sudden, and I'll use a girl as an example here in basic training, all of a sudden you've got to carry a 40-kilo pack, and you've got to hike the thing, X amount of kilometers and climb so many hills with it. And it's not surprising that your back gave up halfway through. Those sorts of training initiatives are different, obviously, for the Navy, come with an implied duty of care, don't they?
Mate, I think they definitely do. I think Commissioner Peggy Brown, you can find her statement in the media, but she said the enemy's not the foreign adversary. It's within the barracks. It's within our own nation. And a lot of people who reach out to me, Carl, the trauma that's inflicted on them is, and I believe, they've loyally served the nation. They've gone and they have fought a foreign adversary. And in those battles, they've lost the close mates. They've formed, good friends. And they believe what they were doing was right. And then you come home and you're betrayed by your own officers in your own organization, and there is no support there. And that's probably what was probably the worst for me. It was not the deployments. It wasn't the training. It was how the organization betrayed me and all I simply did was ask for help.
Yeah, well, and the help that you got wasn't actually the help that you asked for. It was suggested to you. So do you want to explain that?
I asked for help with the inquiry report into my brother because, I'm not a lawyer, but I could identify there was failings, there was commentary, and I'd later on the 5th of May 23 get told by ADF reps that the CDF wrote in red pen on my brother's inquiry report, this is a horrible, horrible report, please explain. And I said, well, how do you think the older brother was going to take it when you mailed it to me? So when I did go and ask for help, straight away this is for the Royal Commission. If they weren't there, a number of times the Royal Commission said, John, this is their report. We can take all the lived experience and we provide a collective of recommendations to government. We can't give you truth. We can't give you accountability. We can't give you justice. This is the ADF's own report and their own failings. I did have some support from my local federal member. He was good. It got escalated to Barnaby Joyce, as Shadow Minister for Veterans Personnel. He was great. I emailed both those politicians and my Matt Keogh as the Minister for Veterans Personnel. all around September 27th September 22. They got back to me. The Liberal guys got back to me within 7 days. Matt Keogh got back to me about 9 months later, around June or July 23. And I was like, thanks, Matt. You're doing a great job. But, mate, if it wasn't for the Royal Commission, the ADF would say, John, this is for the Royal Commission. On the 30th of August 22, they finally put that in writing. All matters pertaining to your brother are for the Royal Commission. That was the 30th of August 22. I went down to Canberra on the 28th of October 22 to receive a written apology from Deputy Chief of Navy. And I asked the Navy captain presenting it, I said, man, why am I receiving an apology today when on the 30th of August, the Navy said this matter is all matters pertaining to my brother aren't for the Royal Australian Navy. And she goes, John, we never said that. And I pull out the document and I read it verbatim. It's paragraph 4. And it was Captain Anne Andrews. She goes, John, the Navy never authorised that. And I said, ma'am, I'm an enlisted sailor. I said, do something about this. She did take the documents. She did scan them in. She also took the document and shocked her. I said, ma'am, are you aware of the document from Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Freeman? And I'd met Nick Caldis, the Royal Commissioner, in February 22. And Nick had a look at all my the evidence I had. And he goes, John, you need to put a complaint of maladministration in. And I remember, because me being me, I said, sir, you don't mean defective administration or leadership. And he goes, John, trust me, I'm the Royal Commissioner. And so
yeah,
it was a great man, Nick Caldis. So I remember that. And so I go and I put in the complaint of maladministration, and Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Freeman's response was, John's allegation of maladministration cannot be substantiated because John freely admits to seeing a psychologist and psychiatrist to move ahead in his personal and professional life. If the Navy and DFR were aware, John would never have been eligible for the position. Therefore, his allegation can't be substantiated. A few things that upset me is the Navy was aware, because my OIC, the Lieutenant Commander in charge of the Royal Australian Navy Diving School in 2011, said, John, I've got a duty of care. You have to see someone after your brother's death. That was great. Fair call.
Yep.
But having that used against me and having the Lieutenant Colonel Freeman lie. And the second thing was, I've gone from clearance diving and deploying all around the world to Defence Force recruiting. They're polar opposites in the stress level.
Yeah.
And that was this Lieutenant Colonel, who's now Colonel Matthew Freeman. That was his he used my mental health that the Navy had asked me to see against me to divert the allegation against him, and he was then promoted. So
you're not just making these allegations against this colonel. You actually have it in his own words, in his own signed documents. Is that right?
I have the documents, and I can bring the file up now. Just let me. But with my series that I'm bringing out now, Person of Interest.
Yes.
Around episode 12 will be Colonel Matthew Freeman. So
let's not go blowing out your series. Let's not get people too far ahead, because I think there is so much to what you are going to be putting forward. I don't want to get ahead, but I'd be very happy to talk to you about the different things that you're putting up every week, and obviously if we can help out in any way, shape or form. The thing that amazes me about all of this is that the Navy, in this case, your employers, being studiously filled full of bureaucrats, have noted absolutely everything down. And was it through just a quirk of fate or a bit of luck or whatever, but you actually gained access to your own medical files and the things that had been said about you, which gave you a whole other line of inquiry. Is that right?
That's exactly right, Carl. I was sent by a good friend and superior in the chain of command. He was a chief clearance diver. They were scanning documents in hard copies to electronic. And he sent me a photo of one of my reports for my selection. And I asked him if he could send me the actual scanned document. And he said, John, just hop onto Objective, put your name in, and I'll have it there under your name. So you'll easily access. I'll make sure you got the privileges to see it and to download it. So I go into the Defence's Objective system, put my name, and, mate, hundreds of documents appear that
Wow.
under my name. And the first one I open up was the decision brief for Chief of Defence Force on all matters pertaining to me and my brother. And for information only, Chief of Air Force, Chief of Navy. And I checked with some friends. That document was able to be viewed by anyone in the Defence Force, friends I got in different positions. And I looked through. There was more documents. There was emails. There was conversations going on about me behind my back with no right to reply. There was timelines that had been put together that I can prove they were false. I got statements from the area manager at Defence Force Recruiting where I worked. I got a statement from the flight sergeant, the rank above me, saying that the timeline was false. And those same people who wrote the timeline have recently given evidence to Inspector General ADF that he presented to me on the 23rd and 24th of October in the IGADF findings, which is all false. And a good example is, John, no one at DFR was aware that you even had a brother, let alone he committed suicide till September. But I go through the documents I've got, and that same individual was emailed from Captain Jan Noonan, her boss, to the senior military recruiting officer, Rabina, in June or July that year, saying, Carly, can you confirm you've got support mechanisms in place for John? And attached is the decision brief for the Chief of Defence Force, which clearly outlines I had a brother when he committed suicide, his service career. So, mate, and Carl, I quickly just printed off that document you asked me about, and so that's it there.
Wow.
And, mate, I can read verbatim. This is HQ DFR response to CO HMAS Morton, Petty Officer John Armfield grievance, because apparently it's a grievance, not a complaint. Grievance, yeah. And assessment of the occurrence, paragraph 4. Everything bad's on paragraph 4. I don't know why. Based on the disclosures from PO Armfield at reference B and the command management assessment, it is my view that none of the allegations made by PO Armfield at reference A are substantiated. The following assessment is provided: that PO Armfield may have been unsuitable to assume his DFR posting, and that this was not known to Navy or DFR at the time of his selection. It is worth noting that reference B, PO Armfield discloses that he required 10 years of professional psychology and psychiatry guidance to be able to move ahead in his life and function in both a personal and professional capacity. So,
right,
anyone out there, the ADF, and as I've got in the recording from the 5th of May, the 5 days before they booted me, the IGADF lawyer says, John, it's a paradox where they encourage you to seek mental health support, but if you do, they'll then use it against you, as they have here.
To deny you going forward. Mate, I know you're not in recruiting now, but when they bumped you to recruiting, and not that I think that that's a lowly job, but, well, I've got half an idea, and probably only half an idea. Do you want to explain, as much as you're allowed to, what a Navy clearance diver does?
Mate, we're a jack of all trades. We sort of do the helmet diving you see in the movies, salvage work, the welding, repairs, ship's husbandry type roles. We do mine countermeasures. So on a mixed gas rebreather, we can dive to 60 meters and search for mines using handheld sonars. And we do the tactical. So it used to be called Maritime Tactical Ops. When I left, it was Expeditionary Reconnaissance Clearance, ERC. And you can use oxygen rebreather and be tactically deployed, overtly swim in, clear an area from amphibious vessels, dispose of any mines or underwater obstacles, and then return. All covertly unknown.
I've heard clearance divers are the Navy's version, the Australian Navy's version of the SEALs. Do we have a version of the SEALs inside the clearance divers quartum?
Mate, we have the boys who go and do Special Forces selection and advanced CQB and work with the commandos out at Holsworthy doing tactical assault group East, so TAG East, which is a domestic counterterrorism role for maritime and land. And they are good. They are good.
So you go from that sort of a role to turning up in the city every day, looking at pimply-faced kids who come in and think they might think that this career, whether it be Army, Navy or Air Force, is for them. How do you find selling that? And even today, I'm sure you've got friends and acquaintances who kids come up to you and say, oh, I'm thinking about joining. What was it like in the Navy? What do you tell them?
Mate, for 18 years, it was my life. It was amazing. You create a bond. You've got family that you can trust for anything. And you deploy with those guys and you know everything about each other. And they hold you to a standard. When I first joined, I remember when I first joined the clearance diving team, the fellow able seamen, they wouldn't give you a part of ship because they didn't trust you because, you know, you're working on diving equipment and things that are very life critical. So you had to earn the respect of your peers. And, mate, it was a great culture. And some of it I feel was, you know, if I stayed within the clearance diving community and hadn't posted the Defence Force recruiting, maybe things had turned out differently. The problem is my reporting over my entire career was impeccable. And I deployed at every rank at least once. And there was a stage there that I was the Navy's poster child. I was the poster boy. I was in Navy recruiting videos. And then as soon as you go against the organization, which I really didn't think I was just asking, hey, can someone help me with this report? You know, it's they turned
on you. They turned on you so savagely when you've held your hand out for a bit of support, which they claim to be able to offer all their new recruits. I wish nothing more than a speedy conclusion to all of this, but what is the conclusion for you? We were talking about this the other day, and it's easy to say, oh, look, you've got a court case, you can sue them, you can get a lot of money out of this. But I would say this is a systemic problem that comes from the lack of honourable people occupying the spaces inside the bureaucracy, inside the minister's office or inside the ADF administration that is making this difficult, not serving members. Or would I be wrong in saying there's just too many shiny bum officers floating around trying to make decisions?
Mate, I've had a lot of different people reach out. I had a captain come to the Gold Coast, and it's surreal to have a Navy captain. That's the Army colonel equivalent. And he had some issues he wanted to talk about and vent. And I've had probably hundreds of veterans reach out since I spoke at the Royal Commission. And his explanation was there's a peacetime and a wartime leaders, and they're very polarizing. And that's when Pearl Harbor was attacked. He was explaining they parachuted Nimitz in. But his style of leadership wasn't warranted or required until the US was attacked. I'm not quite sure why. And mate, and I had a lot of friends, Carl. But I can count on my hand two officers and 3 chiefs that supported me. There's a lot of people that are
18-year career. That's not a lot to hang your hat on, is it?
No, and I become the problem. I was the one who was pulling at the fabric of what my peers, my colleagues, my mates truly believed in. And that adds to the trauma of when, I truly loved my career, but I was torn between. I'd lost my father in 2015. Cancer had got him. My mum had died in 2010. I didn't want the fight, but, I believed I was a values-based individual who had morals. And you sort of confronted is, do I hold the organized? Because if my dad was still here, he would have done the fight. But at some stage, one chaplain said to me, he goes, "John, we all choose the mountain we die on, and this is yours." Didn't want that mountain, and it was scarier than any deployment I'd done. It truly was, because you knew who the enemy was when you deploy, but here, it was like I was the enemy. I'd become the enemy. Brought up, Carl, the one thing I've brought up is my selection board results for my clearance diver acceptance test in 2004. And this is the one thing that I read all the time just to empower me, and that I hope my adversaries, because my adversaries are here in Australia, they're not a foreign adversary, as Commissioner Peggy Brown said, is Seaman Armfield demonstrated a consistently superior performance in all selection criteria, highly motivated with a calm and level-headed approach and unwavering commitment. He was resilient to the challenges of the selection and able to take a leadership role. I have to constantly remind myself I can do this fight. And I had my local member ask me, he had all the documents. He goes, "Would this go away for $1 million?" And I said, "I can't. It's my brother." And then when I met with Barnaby, and he never offered money, I just want to make sure everyone understands he didn't offer, but he said a certain individual got paid almost $3 million with no evidence. He goes, "Look how much you've got." Yeah. And I said, "Barnaby, it's not going away." And my psychologist will say, "John, do you ever regret, And I said, "Kel, I could take the money and I could have a nice yacht and I could sit there. But as soon as I stop being engaged and I crack that first beer, I realize I've sold out my own brother and my mates, right?" Because we had a stage there was 3 suicides very close, and there was 2 deaths within 2 weeks within my own community. Wow. I'd just given the eulogy. I just organised my mate's funeral on DY Beach. I just spoke, and the chaplain had said to me before, he goes, "You good?" I said, "Mate, I've done my own brothers. This will be all right." And I get up, and my mate's 3-month-old son's looking at me, and wow. That would be, I'd say, that the hardest thing I've done in my life. That one, and wow. I walked away from the podium, and the chaplain's like, "You've got to get back up there and do this, John." And there's probably 50 clearance divers in the ceremonials, there's families, but the only person I remember was my mate's son. And then in that group of guys that were on the same dive course as him, there was 4 of them come up and thanked me and said, "Mate, it's good that we've all come back together." That was on a Wednesday. On the Saturday, one of those boys was found hung and had hung himself. Like, this is not just my brother that's committed suicide. It's so many. And I couldn't say I could pick any of them, right? I couldn't have picked any of these guys that have committed suicide. I don't understand why, but The difference
Well,
is
many of them don't do it while they're still in the job. It comes afterwards when they're at home and they can't get employment in Civvy Street, or they go down to their local RSL and are treated like a friggin' leper because the RSLs have been sold out now. They are RSL in name only. RSL is a corporation, and your sub-branch might be lucky to get an office area somewhere they can hold a meeting once a month. And they might get a very small percentage of the beer and pokey sales, but it'll be a very small percentage, and they'll be contracted to be paid it because they've sold the name RSL to the companies that own these RSLs. So think twice before you go in there, folks. But that was, for me, one of the most disturbing things. The RSLs do not support the servicemen, the return servicemen, as they once did.
And Carl, they parachute in there all these former senior officers who had no empathy, compassion, or leadership for their troops in the first place. You know, it's so there's over 3,000 external service organizations, and there's not one that's reached out to help me. And people have offered me horse therapy, but no one actually stands up. And because I do get a chance to speak to a lot of veterans, and I say, what do you want? And a lot of them have lost their careers, and a lot of them have lost identity, and a lot of them feel like they can't get justice. So if you give them justice, the mental health, the demons go away and they can function. But it's mind blowing. There's a young lady that I talked to who's going through her was raped in service, and the organization's pushing her out, but not the perpetrator. And and then I speak to men that have been raped in there, and everyone just wants justice, but we're stitched up by the Inspector General ADF, who will sit there and go, well, you know, all your complaints can go to them. But then they actually have put in writing to me, John, the IJDF's role is to investigate failures of the military justice system. Allegations of criminality are not our wheelhouse. And I said to him 2 weeks ago, I said, who does an enlisted sailor, soldier, or airman go to report allegations of criminality if you've because I've given it to the chain of command, the warrant officer of the Navy, the chief of Navy, both of them in person and in writing. And I said, I've given it to you. And their response was, we can't respond to that. And I'm like, you're a Navy Commodore. You're a defense lawyer. I go, you guys can't tell me who you report allegations of criminality to, because no one will do anything.
Yeah. Since we met a couple of days ago, I've asked around, done a little bit of questioning about that. And it turns out the AFP are the port of call for criminality conducted within the Australian Defence Forces. And there's history for this. Some people will be old enough to remember that Duntroon had a history of bastardization. And at one point, I can't remember how many years ago, I want to say in the 90s it might have been, there was a couple of very severe cases of rape, both male and female rape. And these cases were investigated by the AFP and prosecuted in Canberra outside of Department of Defence. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that helps you. And God knows the AFP have been no help to many people in the past. So I've got no reason to suspect they're going to help you. But maybe that's an avenue.
Mate, I've got a couple of people have reached out, and I've got a good friend, Catherine, who was my lawyer through the Royal Commission and who walked me through that process, who does vet a lot of stuff and help me. And I've had another gentleman reach out and say, you know, we need to have our ducks in a row, the documents printed out, our cases done, and walked into the AFP with media present so that we can force them to act. And I actually just sent an email before this meeting, and I attached my 58-page response to IJDF that I just sent. I attached the link to my latest video, Person of Interest, and I attached a uni, because I started uni, Carl, just to try and provide a solution. And so I've drafted up a national multi-agency investigation policy as part of my master's program, which the university peer-reviewed, and it did really well. And the whole thing is removing IJDF from this so that any allegations of criminality within Australia and in peacetime that veterans or service personnel can have the same, I guess, legal rights as civilian population. And I've just emailed that to pretty much every senator we've got in Australia.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm waiting. I'll send you what I've sent, and we'll see if I get a response.
Absolutely. And if you don't get a response, let me know. We might get it sent a few more times for you. Though I would hope, I mean, Malcolm Roberts seems to be all over these sorts of issues. He holds his hand up pretty often to help and to try and gain as much information that he can, which in many cases is a lot more than you or I are able to get. So I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I would hope that Malcolm would stick his hand up. Matt Canavan is another one that's probably worth looking at. And although he's not in the parliament anymore, Gerard Rennick would know where to go looking and the shortcuts through it. So might be able to help introduce you there to those three and push that along.
And all three of them plus Alex Antic are in that email. So I'm hoping, and I've met Malcolm's a great man, as is Gerard. But there's just so much on their plate, right?
And accountability is not high on their list of things they want fixed.
No, but there's so many issues right now in this nation, and I'm a solutions focused individual, that if I can just focus on one, and I can focus on the ADF, and we can try and fix it, then hopefully as a nation we can create an ADF that's worthy of my kids to serve in if they want.
Absolutely.
Or an ADF that takes me back if they want, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
So
because like all career Navy, I imagine it's the same for Army and Air Force, you never really want to leave. You always want to be there. You want to be doing the job. You want to be on the ocean doing the job. So to have it taken from you in this sort of manner is not honourable in any way, shape or form. And those senior officers who are above you, who have been extremely diligent in crossing their T's and dotting their I's on every piece of paper that has ever come across their desk, I hope that comes back to haunt them in a good way for you, because they will not be able to deny their words. You're not telling people this is what you think they said. You are showing people the actual documents with their quotes in inverted commas.
That first series I just put out, Carl, that is, I've used, obviously I'm a normal Australian citizen. I don't have the money to make a mistake, right? And so everything I do has to quote directly from the ADF to avoid any defamation or any failures. And so I'm quite aware of that. And as you can see tonight, I read verbatim.
Yep.
And I'm hoping this one I just did, I'm hoping that's a hot topic issue in Canberra today. And I'm hoping the one that drops tomorrow night, and tomorrow night's one is quite simply the senior medical officer has stated that part of the reason that he failed in my brother's care was he was 40% undermanned. Now, he's the senior medical officer. He's the expert. But the CDF told the VCDF, which I've got the emails, to investigate, and he comes back and says it's not. So when I report this to IJDF, what they do is they'll gaslight you, and they write John's allegation that RAF Base Edinburgh was 40% undermanned cannot be confirmed. But what they're doing is That's not my allegation. That is the
Yeah.
statements of your two heads, head officers.
Yeah.
Someone's lying, and that's
Yeah.
not only chargeable within defence under the criminal code and the criminal act. All defence personnel are public officers, so they can be charged under that as well. But you start to go down that path, and everyone backs off. No one will talk to you about it. So now all I can do is put out exactly what these individuals have said, put out what the ADF said to counter them, and let Australia make a decision.
I'm going to get Stu. Send me an email tonight, and I'll forward your details on to John for sure. Stu is one of the regular followers on the show. Stu's ex-Navy as well, and he's very keen to reach out to you and have a conversation. So, with your permission, I'll put you two together. It's probably better we do it via email than at a bar. I'm just saying.
A bar could be effective.
Well, trust me, there may well be a bar in your future, particularly one around the Voice of Freedom, because we do get together and have get-togethers, and we'd love you to be part of that at some stage. I think there's a lot of things that I would like to be able to help you with, and people who will no doubt reach out to you and to me through this. So we were talking about it the other day. We'll look at seeing what we can put together for the Freedom Broadcasting Network down the track. But first of all, we want to be able to provide some form of closure, some form of accountability, I think, John, for you and your family. And whatever we can do to help increase the pressure on the Chief of Defence or whoever needs the pressure placed on them, please let us know. We are old. We are very good letter writers. We are very motivated to send emails. And some of us get out and wave placards. So if you need a bit of help doing any or all of the above, then please reach out, because this audience feels very strongly about returned servicemen and women. Thank you all for your service, and we will do whatever. And I speak for me, but I will do whatever I can to help you guys in whatever situation you are in. And I know there are many others watching tonight who feel exactly the same way. So people can go and check out your person of interest video over at your YouTube channel. The link is in the description of this show, John. But what would you say, because I've got to admit, the person of interest title got me because I love that TV show. Don't go and get yourself into trouble with that with copyright. But what can people expect from the series if they start at episode 1?
Episode 1 will give you the idea and it'll take you on the journey that I've been on. I put some stuff out, content out early, and people, my lawyers, my psychologists, everyone involved says it's so complex. It's just gotten so out of control now that we've had to go back to the very beginning. And I'm hoping that Australia can see it's a great job. It really is. It was the best job I've ever had. But unfortunately, there's a few problems, and hopefully we can pull these weeds out and make the Australian Defence Force what it's supposed to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All power to you, mate. Thank you. I'm so fortunate that you came into my life over the weekend, and we've had this opportunity to catch up. We are going to do it a lot more. Just give people your YouTube channel. In fact, I've probably got it here. It's easy enough for me to paste up somewhere. Do I have it here? He says. Trust me, I don't have it sitting here in front of me. But it's youtube.com/John Armfield. ARMFIELD. Isn't it? Yeah. Not Arms, Armfield. John Armfield. Easy YouTube search will find it. So, and give him a like, a support, and a subscribe, because I think he's, I don't know, what he got, 500 or so subscribers on there. So I'm sure we'll be able to add a few more to that one for you, and look forward to seeing your next release. And mate, if ever you need a bit of time on the show, please just reach out. Love to have you.
Thanks, Carl. And thanks to the viewers, guys. I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of support in there for you too, mate, in the chat. I don't know. It's hard to concentrate on it while you're doing what you're doing, but just going through it, there is a lot of support for you and a lot of, I think, people who have had similar or very close to experiences with you. You are not by yourself, sadly, and that goes to show more about our Department of Defence and the Australian Defence Forces in general, their leadership or lack thereof, than anything else. So, mate, happy to help fight this fight with you any day of the week.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks, guys.
Good on you. Cheers, John. That's John Armfield. God, keep putting an S in where there isn't one. John Armfield. Go to YouTube, John Armfield, ARM for Mary, FIELD, and check out his Person of Interest series. I think you'll gain a bit out of that. I don't think I've got Patch's number, but thanks, Pete. I will, if any of you want to reach out to John and get in contact, please email me and I will forward your email on to him. I don't want to give it out on the air because we know some of the people that watch this show are just trolls and turds of humans, if you could call them that. And I'm not going to inflict any more bullshit upon anybody who's served on our Defence Force. Our government seems to be inflicting enough of it on everybody's behalf. So I'll do a little bit of screening, if you like, on the way through. But, yeah, by all means, if you would like to catch up or reach out to John, find out a little bit more about what he's doing, then by all means, carl@vofhq.com, and we will do that. Now, you might remember toward the end of last year, my place had a big get-together in Victoria. It was in Echuca at Wackety Creek, the caravan park. It was a wonderful time to get together. Well, there is another one, but this time it's in Queensland. It's at Burra Gully Bush Camp, which I can tell you does look rather nice. Here's a little bit of a look at what they can offer. Now, Burra Gully, I hear you say, where the bloody hell is Burra Gully? Well, for those of us that are in the southeast corner of Queensland, it's in Gunalda. Now, Gunalda is north of Gympie, south of Mackay, or south of Maryborough and Harvey Bay. It is that bit of range that you go up where the road splits into two and you go around the hill. That's Gunalda. So that's the basic area. It will be somewhere around there. But it's coming up on the, 12th, 13th and 14th of December. It sounds like a pretty cheap weekend at $25 for adults. Kids are free. There will be info. There'll be talks. There'll be music. There'll be food. There'll be fun. There'll be bush crafting. And my intention is to be there for that one. Might see if I can't drag a couple of others along with me while we do that and put up, what I'm sure will be a marvellous weekend. It's not too far, I would have to say, if I had to guess, driving the bus. So your car will be quicker. Driving the bus, I'd say 3.5 hours north of Brisbane, maybe. If it's not 3.5, it might be 4, but that'd be about the most. And in the car, you'd definitely be 3 to 3.5. So an easy trip up the highway, provided nobody does anything stupid on it. And Gympie is bypassed these days, so you don't have to worry about starting your way through Gympie for 40 minutes. It does knock a sizable bit off the trip. So look forward to seeing you there. If you want the phone number to dial up and get some information, I thought there was a phone number there. Maybe it's on this one. There it is. You can call Craig, 0407 630 924. And at $25 a night, it's $25 for the weekend. It's bloody cheap. Bit like our Freedom Cruise. Now, if you want to come on it, we would love to have you. May 4 to 8, it's cheap as chips. The cruise seems to be getting cheaper by the day because I got a message in an email today, I think, where the bedroom I've paid for, or am paying for slowly, is now cheaper. Don't know how that works, but at any rate, it does. Why don't you call Annette and ask her for yourself, 1300 385 265. But that extension number is the important number. That way you get a hold of her. Mention Voice of Freedom. Not that you're going to get any great special saving from it, but she will put us into that group and they'll know that we're coming as a group and therefore we might be able to organise things as a group. Things like meal times. Now, apparently you can be a bit posh on a ship and you can ordain to eat at, I think it's 6:30 or 8 p.m. It might be 6 or 8 p.m. Now, I figure most of us will want to eat at 6, I would have thought, rather than get dressed up and go to 8. But it is one of those dress to eat kind of things. So we can all choose to involve ourselves in that and look a bit posh, or we can just meet at the burger bar and have a few beers and fall into the pool before shuffling off to bed later at night. I'm not quite sure how these cruises will play out. It could be a bit of fun. I know some people are threatening to bring musical instruments. So who knows? There might be a bit of mirth, madness and mayhem happening on the seven seas. Well, just the one of them, the Pacific. While we head our way to Ainslie Beach, have a day in Ainslie. So if you're in far north Queensland and you don't want to come on a cruise, but you'd like to meet up, it has been decided. So Skipper Pete, I don't know if this is too far for you to travel, but probably is now that I think about it. Airlie's a good probably 4 hours from where Skipper Pete is. It's only a hop, skip and a jump for far north Queenslanders. But we're going to stop at Ainslie for the day. The beach will beckon and we will come aboard, or ashore rather, and we will find a pub somewhere along the beach there somewhere, or somewhere where we can sit down, have a meal, some fish and chips or whatever the local cuisine happens to be. And for those folks in Proserpine, in Ainslie, in Bowen, I don't know, folks in Townsville, if that's too far for you to travel down. But I know folks in Bowen, probably not, given the urgency and the phone calls that I get about calling into Bowen. So maybe you can come, maybe two, if you're floating around Proserpine or Ainslie Beach, then reach out to me and tell me what is a good venue in the town, because we will want to book that, I think, on the 5th or the 6th, it might be. We need to book it. And get a bit of an idea of numbers, because I'm all good. I will sit at a very large table by myself and not have any problems with that. Sad and lonely thing that I am. This bloke was found dead in Queensland over the weekend, or actually I think it was yesterday morning. Now, this bloke is Ian Levy. He used to be the head of the Queensland Police Union, and since COVID has been the head of, what do they call him, the Border Commissioner. So he's been responsible for liaising between New South Wales and Queensland, and I dare say South Australia coppers, because we do have a border that joins them briefly. So he was found dead in his house, lived by himself, dead in his house. They are still investigating as to why this man was found dead. He was one of the big encouragers of the lockdowns and keeping people separated by putting up a big plastic fence down on the Queensland border at Tweed Heads and Coolangatta, and was very proud of overseeing what happened there for months and months and months, where families were kept apart. And one day a week they were able to come down and really meet at this temporary structure and, see the family. Anyway, I just thought I'd point that out. It's a little weird that he's shuffled off this mortal coil. This I found just funny. Iran-backed hackers have stolen the plans for Australia's new $7 billion infantry fighting vehicle. The plans were stolen from Israeli arms companies, 17 of them. So the Redback, it is called, the new infantry fighting vehicle that the Australians have designed, apparently. Well, I think all we've done is design the name, because for a lot of it, I think it's being built under license from other people. But plans for the new $7 billion Redback were stolen, hacked off these Israeli defense company servers, which isn't, a terribly flash thing when you're a defense company server. They've claimed to have stolen them from 17 companies, and they have the complete breakdown on what is what. Oh, wrong one. So, interestingly, the turrets for these infantry fighting vehicles are entirely Egyptian designed and are working in with the Israelis to figure out the rest of the design, how to marry the two together, I assume. And then somehow the Redback, an Australian designed fighting vehicle, is going to eventually be produced here in Australia. That was, I thought, what the understanding was. The Bushmasters have been produced here in Australia and done a pretty good job. But anyway, the Redback looks like it's probably the kind of thing that you would send off sooner rather than later to Ukraine, now that $7 billion worth of investment has been blown wide open by security, wouldn't you think? Just goes to show that not all the dickheads are on the roads, are they, folks? Have yourself a great night. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's rock!